Welcome to my second How to Sew a Lanyard video. I recently did one where I made a lanyard like every lanyard I have ever worn. One loop of fabric with a hook on the bottom. But what I love about YouTube is that I learn things as much as I try and show things. So some of the comments informed me that in the United Kingdom, these are illegal. I had no idea. They have to have a quick release hook so that if it gets pulled on, it comes apart nice and easy. It's a lot safer now that I think about it. So I quickly went online, found these quick release hooks, and decided we needed to do another video. I was really surprised to discover that making them with this hook is easier than making it without. That was a nice surprise. So if you want a little bit of a safer option where if somebody yanks on it, it's going to come off, then this is the video for you. If you want the one loop, I will put the link below here so you can see how to do that as well. So let's get started. You're going to need this lobster clasp with a 1-inch D-ring, okay? And you're going to need this quick release clip. It's a little harder to pull apart without the fabric on the sides, but it comes apart really well with the fabric on the sides. I did find these to be a little more difficult to find online than I expected, but make sure you're looking for quick release clasp and not just a buckle. You don't want to have to squeeze it to get this open. You want it to open automatically if your lanyard is yanked on. So that's super, super important. I almost bought the wrong thing. All right, now let me show you how easy these are to make. Similarly to this first lanyard that I made, which is just a loop with the hook on it, if you want to make one with this clasp, it has a quick release, a little bit safer. You're going to start with a long piece of fabric. So I have sewn together some of my scraps from my Spring Barn Quilts collection. I just love this quilt block toss, and cut it to 37 inches. For the one without the hook, you cut to 36 inches, but with the hook, because we're going to be folding down on both of these, I cut it to 37. Now, if you have a larger person, you want it a little bit longer, you can make it longer, obviously, but 37 is a great way to start. So this one, I just sewed these pieces straight. You'll notice on this one, I combined 3 pieces and did them at an angle, just like I was doing quilt binding. So you can do whatever you want. And of course, you can just do a single strip of fabric like this one. Now, similar to the first one, we got lots of ironing to do. So you're going to take your fabric and place it face down on your ironing board. We're going to press each end down 1/4 inch, and we are going to fold it in half, matching these long raw edges, and press all the way down the fabric. Now we are going to open it back up. We are going to do a long pressing number 2. We are going to fold this raw edge into this fold, but make sure you don't press that fold back open. We want to keep that fold for our lanyard. So we're just going to fold that down, and you're going to put your iron at an angle so that it's going to create that second crease, but not touch the first crease. Now that we have our ends pressed in, folded in half, it's time to add our fleece. And what we are going to do is we are going to put that lined up right into that crease mark. Now, the thing about fusible fleece, you want to make sure you put the fused part down so it never touches your iron. So if you just rub it between your fingers, one side is fluffier, one side's got a little bit of scratchiness to it. That is the fusible product. So you want to put the scratchy side down. And we are going to place the fleece right under this fold, tucks in there nicely, and then you are just going to put that fleece against the fold the entire length of the lanyard. Now my piece is too long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the end, and then I am going to trim that so that it lines up with this crease where the end folds over 1/4 inch. I'm just going to do that with my scissors. It can be a little bit down, doesn't matter. But let me show you, if you have extra pieces of fusible fleece hanging out, you can cut them into 3/4 inch strips, and you can piece them together in here. So let's pretend this wasn't long enough and it only came to here. All you do is you take your second piece of fleece, double checking which side is a little scratchy and which side is softer, and you just put them right next to each other. So you just butt them up to each other, and you just keep going. No one will ever know if you have one or multiple pieces of fleece inside this lanyard once it is sewn together. Now I bet you know what the next step is. We are going to take this raw edge and we are going to fold it up over the fleece, and we are going to press this long edge, paying attention to making sure this stays lined up nicely. And make sure as you are folding this up that you're not pushing that fleece over that crease. Hey, it rhymes. Now this fusible fleece, I use the 987F from Tailor. I just always keep it around. And I believe the instructions say to press for like 10 seconds to have it really adhere, which you can tell that I am not doing that at the moment. And that is okay. So it's not totally fusing, but my goal here is to just get this crease in. And we're going to be ironing over it one more time a little bit slower. That will also be attaching that fleece a bit better. And then finally, it's such a skinny piece of fleece, and we are going to be sewing down both sides. It's going to stay in place whether it's perfectly fused or not. Okay, now we're going to do our final pressing, and for this one, I am going to use a Tailor's clapper, or sometimes called a quilter's clapper. The quilter's clapper is usually a little bit shorter because it's used for quilt blocks. I have both sizes. I like a longer one when I'm doing a long project like this. So what we're going to do next is we are going to make sure this stays folded, and we're going to be doing that final fold to make it 1 inch like a lanyard should be. I like to fold it so the fleece is on top so that it gets the most heat as we do this last step. And this one I do go a little bit slower so that that fuse has time to really adhere the fleece to the fabric. And you can just do this like this, no problem. But the reason I like these clappers is you press it down on there and it absorbs the heat. And if you're using steam, it will absorb any of that moisture into the wood and it makes it flatter. So it gets those seams even more creased and it cools off your fabric so you're not moving really hot fabric. So that's just another one of those tools that if you have the budget and you're looking for something that's handy but not necessarily vital, you might want to consider a quilter or Tailor's clapper. And if I was only to get one, I would get the Tailor's because it's longer and it'll work for shorter or longer things. I really like the scrappy look of this. If you're going to make one of these, I mean, who doesn't need a lanyard? What would you do? Would you do single strips of fabric? Would you use up some fabric scraps and sew them together so you have multiple prints on one lanyard? Let me know what you're thinking. If I was doing a lot of these for gifts, like for the office or teachers or stocking stuffers, I would probably do single pieces of fabric just because it's a little bit faster to not have to piece things together. But if I had an overabundance of fabric scraps and lots of time, I might piece it all together. I don't know. Well, a lot depend on my mood. But let me know in the comments what you would do. Also, let me know in the comments who you will be making these for. And don't forget to make some for yourself. All right, so now we have this all pressed. We have done 1, 2, 3, 4 times down the whole strip. So now it's time to take it to the sewing machine and stitch along the edges. I decided to put a few clips just to keep this in place down the strip that we just folded. Now let's look at how this works. So one side, you just see all of the fabric. On this side, you have a little bit of overlap, and this is where it opens, where the fabrics are folded over. So when you can see that extra fold, that's the back. This is going to be the front. Now that's going to matter when we put our hooks and our clip on there. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we are just going to sew the entire length. We don't need to sew across that end yet. We're going to do that when we add the clip. So we're going to sew down both sides about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, or just make sure you are catching all of this fabric. So whatever you need to do to get that done. So this is just really quick, straight stitching. This is also, as you notice, 4 pieces of fabric and fleece, so it's a little bit thick. So if you have a walking foot, you definitely want to use it. It is going to help feed all of this fabric through more evenly. And then I'm also going to use what is called a leader fabric, because when we're starting on the very edge and have a walking foot on, or even don't have a walking foot on, sometimes your sewing machine gets a little bit stuck and it can't get it started, right? It can't get it fed because it's going from nothing to pretty thick. So the answer to that is to put this leader fabric behind it. You're not going to sew on this. Your machine is just going to use it to help everything move smoothly. So what I've done is I just took a piece of scrap fabric, a piece of scrap batting, folded that over and sewed down both sides. Doesn't have to be pretty, doesn't have to be big. This is just going to be a workhorse that I keep near my sewing machine for projects just like this. So I'm going to put the leader fabric under here. I'm going to put my lanyard here, and now we are going to raise the bobbin thread so that we don't end up with a big bird's nest knot on the other side, which happens to be the front of our lanyard. So we're going to have the leader fabric lined up with the lanyard fabric, put the foot down, hold on to the top thread, put the needle down, still holding this thread, pick the needle up and give it a little pull, and you'll see that bobbin thread now popped up. You're going to grab that and you're going to pull that. Then you're going to put both of these threads under the foot and pull them to the back. Now I'm going to go about three stitches forward, and then I'm going to go backwards, still holding these threads. And now I'm going to have a really nice knot. And did you see how nicely that moved because we had this leader fabric back here? So now I'm just going to sew all the way down the side. And now we're just going to sew down the other side as well, just to really hold that fleece in there and give it a more consistent look. First thing I like to do so that I don't forget is to put on my clasp with the 1-inch D-ring. So I'm just going to thread that on there. Next, we are going to attach both of these ends to this quick release clasp. So you're just going to pull it apart into the two pieces. When you're adding your clasps, this is when it's important to pay attention to the front and the back of your lanyard. And remember, the back is where you could kind of see these two pieces folded together, and the front just looks really good and flat. So you're going to take it with the front up and you're going to feed that through there. And you're just going to fold it back about 3/4 of an inch so that it is folded to the back of the lanyard fabric. Now we are just going to sew straight across, and I'm going to go back and forth, like forward, back, forward. So it's nice and strong. And then I'm also going to be using the leader fabric again and pulling my bobbin up. I'm going to fold my leader fabric in half so that it is pretty much the same thickness as what I'm going to be sewing, because that's really going to help my foot and my sewing machine get everything moving smoothly. Now we're going to take the other half of the clip and do the same thing, making sure we feed the front of the lanyard through and then fold back so that the front is folding back onto the back. So now our hook is on, but our clip is still free floating, and we don't want that. So what you're going to do is you're just going to hold the clasp and pull that back so that your lobster claw is centered down the end. Then we are going to just sew, just like we put on the clasps, straight across to secure that, and then we will be done. And I'm going to use my leader fabric again. And as with every other step, we are going to pull up our bobbin thread. We have a super safe, quick release clasp lanyard that we can use for keys, ID badges, trade show badges, and anything else you want to hang. So let me know in the comments how you're going to make them, what you're going to hang on them, and who you're going to make them for. Happy sewing!